After immense public pressure, Hockey Canada is overhauling its leadership, but athletes in other sports are calling for change as well. In March, a group of more than 90 bobsleigh and skeleton athletes called for the resignation of Bobsleigh Canada executives for creating a toxic culture. In May, current and former gymnasts sued Gymnastics Canada, alleging physical and psychological abuse. And then earlier this month, an independent investigation shed light on a dangerous culture in women's rowing. So with us this morning is Laura Meisner. She's a professor of kinesiology at the University of Western Ontario, whose research focuses on using sports as instruments for social change. She is also a former elite-level gymnast and a gymnastics judge. Welcome to your morning.
Happy to be here.
How does the fact that this current situation involves Hockey Canada possibly affect change at a greater pace?
Well, I think the issue here is that hockey is sort of the Canadian game that everybody knows about, that our kids participate in. So all the eyes are on that and looking at what is this organization going to do to really change the culture. And I think that has a really big impact, or potential big impact, on what other organizations are going to do, because there has been such immense public pressure. So because every day everybody knows about hockey and talks about hockey and plays hockey and all of those types of things. So there's a lot of pressure on this organization to do things right and to get it right. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on other organizations to also have that same face, to do the same kinds of changes that are necessary to have a culture shift.
Well, let's talk about some of those other sports. In July, the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport called for a federal inquiry into the toxic culture in sports, saying that athletes were coming forward with stories of sexual abuse, harassment, discrimination and racism. And then a letter was sent to the Prime Minister, which read, the group, as examples we have heard of recently of stories of maltreatment in the sports of gymnastics, hockey, skiing, rugby, rowing, bobsleigh, boxing, soccer, and swimming. What is it about the structure of high-performance sports that makes them susceptible to toxicity and abuse?
It's a really difficult situation. I don't know that there's one thing that we can point to. If there was something simple that we could fix, then we'd be fixing it already. But there's a lot of pressure on these organizations to perform. The structure of our sports system is set up on a high-performance model where we measure things like medal counts, how many athletes are making the top 8 or top 16 in the world. And then our funding models are set on that structure. So if we look just to the annual reports of these organizations, one of the number one things they report on are things like the medals at Olympic Games and Paralympic Games, and these athletes are making world championships. So there's a lot of pressure on organizations and then on athletes and coaches and all within the system to perform. We're not talking about how many new athletes are coming into the system, how long they're staying active and participating. As long as we continue to focus primarily and predominantly on a funding model that rewards this high performance model, then we're not likely to change the culture of this system.
Laura, I want to get to this last point because it's an important one. You've spoken about the need for an athlete-centered approach, but what needs to happen in order to achieve that?
Well, we need a really big shift in the way we think about the role of athletes within our organizations. A lot of organizations have moved to models where, we've got athlete membership on a board or representation on some of the standing committees, but that's really a consultative model. So that's asking an opinion and then moving on to a decision that was probably going to be made anyway. Not putting athletes and the needs of athletes, what their interests are, at the center of this. And the other thing is, we can't just simply expect athletes to jump into this model and to be able to have the know-how. We have to be educating athletes on how to use their voice, how to act on those ideas, how to bring that voice to the table to actually affect change. And it's really them that should be driving the decision-making processes, and not those from a leadership position who may not really know what's going on inside that system. So we need to empower athletes to have that voice and to be critical as part of the conversation, and not just a side piece where we can simply consult them, but actually them involved in the decision-making processes.
Yeah, Laura, it's a really important point, and they're talking about that even now as they're looking for new leadership at Hockey Canada. If we bring in athletes, we also need somebody who knows how to run or to be a CEO of a charity as well as board advisement. Great conversation today, Laura. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.